This I thought was super interesting, and this is going to help me. Stay tuned to the very end because I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do with my AdSense and what I'm going to do with my promoted listings now. But this is super interesting because it's telling you when people are buying in these categories, right? Y'all, Q4 is here, which means holiday season is here. I'm sharing with you today my new strategy on what I am doing during the end of the year Q4 holiday season to make sure to optimize my sales. It's going to be based off of recently turning off my promoted listing standard. I'll link the video up here for you on what happened when I turned it off. I have since turned it back on my promoted listing standards, and I'm going to be looking in, diving deep into that data and sharing it with you, as well as looking at eBay Ads has put out their new holiday guide. I'll be reviewing the eBay Ads holiday guide for you. It's going to be linked down below so you guys have full access to it, but really going in depth into that and the data and information that they are sharing, combining these two things to come up with my new strategy. Now, keep in mind what I do may be different than what you do, but understanding this data and understanding how to look at the eBay Ads holiday guide and look at your eBay promoted listings standard information is going to help you come up with strategies that are going to work for you. Now, before we get into it, I do want to let you know that I am talking eBay promoted listing standard. That is currently what I am doing. However, spoiler alert, stay tuned until the very end because I may be changing that based off of some information that eBay Ads has come out with, some of the stats that they have in their holiday guide. But what I'm referring to is going to be eBay promoted listing standards. Before we get into it, some of y'all may have noticed my background has changed. Big things are coming and happening over here at SarahStylesLLC. So do make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notifications because I will be making a big announcement here soon. Now, let's get into it. Hey friends, as many of you know, I completely turned off my promoted listings a couple months ago, and spoiler alert, it was not a good idea. I will link the full video up here, but I wanted to hop on and do a quick updated video of what's been going on with my promoted listings. I'm going to be looking at my store, my data, my analytics to show you what's happening, where I'm at, how I'm making these decisions on what promoted listing ad rate I'm at right now. And then I'm also going to walk you through eBay's holiday guide and using my promoted listing data and analytics and eBay's holiday guide together to make the best strategy for my store for Q4 and for the holidays. Now, before we get into it, I want to say I'm going to walk you through and tell you my strategies, but I'm going to show you the information so that you can use this to make the best decision for your store. What's working for me is not necessarily going to work for you, but I'm going to show you where in eBay to look, how to run ads, how to look at the analytics, and then how to read eBay's holiday guide to really give you the best information and make the most money possible this Q4, this holiday season on eBay. So this is going to be a meaty video. Let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to start off with what promoted listings even are. So just a quick overview. If you are new to eBay or you're kind of dabbling in it and you're trying to figure out what I'm even talking about, promoted listings, this is essentially, and I'm going to link all of this down below, but this is essentially paying eBay for their ad space, right? If you were a brick and mortar, you would pay to be in a newspaper or on TV or a podcast or news radio. Right now, honestly, you would probably be paying for social media ads, right? This is all a marketing expense that you have as a small business. And eBay is saying, hey, we are offering you direct marketing to our buyers, and it's for a rate. I currently do promoted listing standards. They have promoted listing standard, promoted listing advanced, and then a new beta. So I'm going to talk about a couple of these and I may try some of them. Make sure to stay tuned on why. But right now I do promoted listing standard. And essentially this just means that I set an ad rate. I say, hey, I'm willing to pay 15% of my item that's sold. But the nice thing about this is I only pay if it sells via promoted listing standard, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about. Now, I have a video, I'm going to link it up here, of how to set up an ad rate. You can also look, or set up a campaign. You can also look linked down below what page I was just on eBay. They have information that walks you through how to set up an ad. But what I'm going to do is skip over that. Let's assume you know how to set up an ad and you want to figure out and kind of mess around and do some A/B testing. So I'm going to walk you through my analytics and tell you how I'm deciding what numbers I'm looking at, what these numbers mean, and how to really decide what the best ad rate is for your store. So what we're doing is we're coming up to eBay, and I'm in my seller hub, I'm on marketing, and then if you click on your advertising dashboard, this is going to be the dashboard that is going to show you all of the data and information for any campaign that you have for promoted listings. So I do recommend setting up a campaign, because then you're able to look at all of this information. You can go in and change it and end it and look at different campaigns. Right now I only have one campaign going on, so I'm going to say all, but you can go in and say, hey, I want to look at my shoes campaign, I want to look on my sports card campaign, whatever you have set up. So I have all selected. I'm going to click on impressions for now, but you can look at impressions, clicks, and sales, and this is going to change the chart down below that we're going to look at in a minute. And then I want to look at the last 90 days for right now to kind of show you what happened when I got rid of my promoted listing. So I'm going to let you look at this and go ahead and take a guess if you can tell when I got rid of promoted listings. And when I quit paying eBay to promote my listings, to show my listings on over 100 different places on eBay, you can clearly tell my impressions. So this is the amount of people that are seeing my items. My impressions from promoted listings clearly went down, right? It's very obvious. If you stop promoting your listings, they're going to stop doing it, right? And then you can see, and I talk about this in my video that I did a couple months ago. I'll link it up here because I go into detail, but you can see there was like a little ramp up. So even though I turned them back on, it took me a couple weeks to get back to where I was before. I turned them back on 15%. I'm a women's fashion seller. I have lots of saturation in the marketplace, and so 15% was where I ended, and I kind of just wanted to get myself back to a baseline before I started messing around with some different rates to figure out if I could decrease that a little bit to get more, still get ad space, still get sales without losing too much of profit, right? Because you are paying them for this, right? So that's what I did. I got back up to 15%, and you can see here it kind of got pretty steady here. And so in October, I started messing around and saying, hey, I'm going to do it for a month. And I do recommend, so that you can really start to see trends, to definitely do things for 2 weeks to a month, even a couple months if you're not a huge volume seller, to really be able to tell what the trend is. So I did it for about a month. I was at 15%, right? So listen, friends, I was paying 15% if my item sold to eBay for giving it exposure, right? Now, keep in mind, I am a women's fashion seller. This is not necessarily going to be what is right for you, but I want you to be able to understand how to set these campaigns and look at the data and figure out if it is right for you. So again, in October, I said, okay, I think I've gotten back to my baseline. You can see some pretty consistent. Now, obviously there's ups and downs, but you can see it's fairly consistently around here for impressions. And then we come over here, I went from 15% to 12%. And you can definitely see I'm getting less impressions from it. Now, is that bad? Absolutely not. Possibly not. Maybe not absolutely. I'm going to show you how to tell if it's bad, because I am paying 3% less in my fees, which means I'm taking home 3% more if something sells. But how does this impact my sales, friends? And that's what really matters at the end of the day. Before we look at the sales, I do want to do a little caveat too. If you're like, I have no idea where to even start with my ad rate, I'm going to link a video up here on how to pull a listing quality report. So this is an amazing report that can help for so many different ways. But one of the things that it's going to tell you in the listing quality report is going to be what other people in your category, what the average promoted listing rate is for your category, right? So I'm women's fashion. It's a high percentage, and a lot of people are promoting. So I have to do a little bit higher than, let's say you were selling something like vintage or collectible, and you're the only person out there selling this. You probably don't need to be promoting at all. Or let's say you have a very low competition type category, your ad rate in your category could be 3%, right? And that's where what I'm doing isn't necessarily going to be what you're doing, but I want you to be able to look at these numbers and make that decision for yourself in your categories, right? So as I said, you can see these numbers definitely increase. Now we're looking at impressions. You can see a decrease in impressions, but what does that mean for my sales? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? At the end of the day, it's about how many items are selling, how much money I am making at the end of the day. So I'm going to click, we're going to look at sales quickly on a chart. And you can see this is a lot of information. I'm going to click off of ad fees just so we have less information going on. You have your promoted listing sales and your organic sales, right? So the purple is your organic sales from promoted. I'm also going to click that off, and I want you just to look at my promoted listing sales, right? So you can see a steady decline here. You can see, kind of a cutoff in through here. This is when I quit my promoted listings. And what's interesting, you're going to say, hey, but you still have sales from that. So something to keep in mind as you are messing with your promoted listings, maybe getting rid of them completely, the item you pay promoted listings if the item was clicked on and sold within 30 days. Right? So it's not necessarily that these items that sold right here when I wasn't promoting my listings, they were probably clicked on a week or two before when I was promoting my listings, but they were sold in that time when I wasn't promoting listings, if that makes sense, right? But you can see the decline here. Now I want us to go over and look at my October, right? Because this is when I am starting to decrease my sales. And I want you to kind of just look at a trend, right? So you can see the trend here in October, they were higher, and then you can see slower. The beginning of October, I'm still gonna have a lot of people that were clicking on them from the 15% ad rate, and they may be selling right now. This is another reason that you do it for a month or two to really get an idea of that ad rate and what it's doing. But you can see in here towards the end of October, that's a lower sales than we were having definitely up here when I was at a 15% ad rate, and even in up here when I was at that 15% ad rate when I did turn it back on. So it is not only in fact impacting my impressions, it is also impacting my sales. Now what I want you to do, because I've kind of skipped over all of these numbers up here because I think it's visually really easy to see if I show you that way. What I want us to do though is I'm clicking on this month. So this month for me is October. This month for me is I took a 12% ad rate and I'm comparing it to the previous month where I was at a 15% ad rate, right? And so what I like is red is bad, green is good, but be mindful of the data and what you're looking at, because sometimes like my impressions are down. I would absolutely expect my impressions to be down because I went from 15% to 12%. So while it's bad, it's completely expected. I'm expecting most of this, honestly, I was expecting most of this to be in the red. However, what I do want to say, I was making 6% less sales because I was spending less on ads. My conversion was up 0.23%, which isn't huge, but it is money. What I think is really interesting is my return on ad spend is up. It's up 1.43 points. So essentially what your return on ad spend of all of this information, this is the number that if you're going to say, hey, this is the make or break if I should use it, this is the number that makes the most sense to make this decision off of. It is telling you of the money that you're spending on ads, this is the return you're getting. Right? This is the money that you're making I think it's per dollar that you're spending on ads. Sales divided by ad fee. So not per dollar. So the percent that you're spending on ads fees, this is the amount of sales that you're making from it. For me, it's up 1.43%. However, this is where you have to be mindful of your data, your categories, what's working for you. While this is good, to me, the reason that this is up is because we're going into fall. Boots are selling, jackets are selling, jeans, sweaters, sweatshirts. These are all higher average sale price items. So it's not necessarily that for me, my impressions went down. I was spending less on ad spend, but I was making more money on a return on ad spend. For me, this return on ad spend, while it's good that it went up, it's not because of anything that I did with ad spend. It's because what was selling from the items, because right now what is selling is just higher average price items. So another way that you can check this is if you go into your performance, and I'll open this on another tab just so we don't lose that because I'm going to come back to it. So if you go to your performance, you go to your summary, and you go ahead and you click on your sales. I'm going to click on this month just so we're looking at October. And you can see here my average sale price is up 15.6%. So this confirms for me that my average sale price is up, and I know because of my inventory and what I sell, it's strictly because, not because anything's selling higher price or I'm doing anything crazy, it's simply because of the inventory that I'm selling. So For me, that being said, while this is a big number to pay attention to, the increase for me is not really anything that's mind-blowing or anything that's going to make me make a decision about this. Everything else being in the red, minus this 0.23, which to me is basically net neutral, is telling me that I am not getting as many impressions, I'm not getting as many clicks, I'm not getting as many everything. Everything is down, and spending 12% less is not worth it. It's not bringing me in the AdSense. The other thing I want to say, because this is a fine line between spending more money to make less at the end of the day, or maybe spending less on AdSense but making more per item, right? So the items that are selling, I'm selling less of them, but each item that I am selling, I'm making more. Another way that I know this, again, friends, I'm over here on performance, I'm on sales. So another way that I know this is I'm looking at my total sales. I'm actually going to scroll down here a little bit because this is easier to see. I'm down here at my selling costs, and my selling costs are actually up. Actually down, but it shows an up arrow, meaning I'm spending less on my ad fees. You can click in here and you can look at it and do comparisons and stuff, right? So for me, and this is where you have to really understand these numbers to be able to decide, is it worth it for me? What's going on for me is I'm selling less items because I'm getting less impressions. People are seeing less of my items. I am absolutely selling less items, but each item that I'm selling, I'm making slightly more because I'm not spending as much AdSense. I'm not spending 3% more at that 15% ad rate. This is where you have to decide, and I'm going to talk at the very end what I'm going to do for Q4 in the holiday season based off of this information and then based off of eBay's holiday guide. The one thing I want to point out as you're deciding if you should be doing promoted listings, if you should be doing them, and if it's even worth it for you. Like I said before, it depends on your category. If you're the only item on eBay, you don't need to have ad spend because someone's looking for that, right? You don't have competition. There's currently like 4 million women's tops right now, and so I have a lot of competition, and it makes sense for me. So think about your categories if it makes sense for you, but then also I want you to think about this funnel. And this is a web or a PDF. You can download it on my website. I think it's like $1. It just helps support my website and the time that I put into teaching. And then you have it at all times, right? But think about it as a funnel, right? We have all of these different metrics on eBay: impressions, page views, sales conversions, right? It starts with impressions. It starts at the top of the funnel. You can't just focus down here on conversion, because if people can't see your items, they can't buy them. I tell you, I say this thing all the time, but it's true. Like, if there's a brick and mortar, they might have a pair of jeans that fits me perfectly, but if I never go into that brick and mortar, if I don't even know that brick and mortar exists, I'm never going to be able to buy it. That's where impressions are. So I have lots of videos on this, organic ways to get impressions, but then as we're talking in this video is promoted listings. That's going to get you impressions. Getting the most impressions, once if you have good inventory, if you have good everything else, you're going to see an increase in sale because more people are seeing your items, right? So now I want to talk a little bit about the eBay holiday guide. If you guys have not seen this, this is such an amazing report that eBay has put out for us. I will link it down below. I'll link the main page, but then all of the stuff that I'm talking about. It's a very comprehensive guide. eBay went out and they surveyed eBayers, they surveyed online participants, online buyers, on asking them important information to help us as sellers understand our marketplace, understand our buyers, so that we can make the best decisions about our ads. So I'm going to talk about the main highlights, things that I found that were important out of this holiday guide, but I definitely highly recommend that you go through. Like I said, I'm going to link it down below, but I hope that you go through and read it, because your business, your category, all of that is going to be different than the things that I value. But so let's go over the first. This is the eBay their main page, and then we're going to dig deep into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is these statistics are mind-blowing to me. So 50% of sellers saw a 50% increase in sales. I'm looking right here when they use promoted listing advance. So their sales are increasing by 50%. Friends, you can see from my data that I am seeing an increase in sales as well. I'd be interested to hear your guys' experience as well. But it goes back to this funnel, right? People are able to see your items now. They promote it. They put it in up to over 100 different places on eBay. You're getting a lot more traffic. That should dwindle down to more sales, especially considering depending on what you have. 81% of consumers said they're likely to click on ads, which is interesting, friend. 81% of people are going to click on these ads. We have some organic sales out there, but people are searching for something and they see an ad, it's instinct, they're interested. It's maybe something slightly different than what they were looking for, but they're interested in it. 81% is huge. 33% of online shoppers say they are very influenced by ads. And then 55% of holiday shoppers expect to spend more than planned on holiday related expenses this year. So people are out there spending. Now, what I want to dig into though is who's spending, when they're spending, and how are we going to kind of use the AdSense based off of the information that I shared with you earlier and this information that eBay is giving us. So if you click on the holiday guide, like I said, I'm going to link this all down below. This is a 14-page comprehensive report. They put it out there, you know, some graphs and charts, and I think it's pretty easy to read. But I'm going to go over the things that I kind of found important. So the first thing is this insight. What I thought was super interesting is the majority of U.S. consumers surveyed, 71% begin their holiday shopping on online marketplaces. Now, that's not to say eBay specifically, but online, 71% of consumers are shopping online. And I know we saw this during COVID, a huge spike in people shopping online, and it's continuing. You can see here projected to maintain growth rate of at least 8% over the next several years. We're not growing at the rate that we did during COVID, but we are still definitely growing. So that's definitely good, helpful information. eBay is still online platform. We are still seeing a growth, maybe not at the rate that we saw during COVID, but that is still really hopeful. This I thought was super interesting, and this is going to help me. Stay tuned to the very end because I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do with my AdSense and what I'm going to do with my promoted listings now. But this is super interesting because it's telling you when people are buying in these categories, right? So this is telling you like the top categories. If you go to the webpage that I linked down below, the one that I was just on, it goes through all of the categories. So if you're not seeing your category here, there is a list that goes through all the categories, and it's going to tell you when you're seeing the most increase, the most shopping in your categories. For me, I'm seeing hoodies and sweatshirts, which is interesting because I did a video either just released or will release after I do this video. I just filmed it though, about what my top sellers are right now, and hoodies and sweatshirts. We're looking at October. Hoodies and sweatshirts are definitely one of them. As I was talking women's fashion, we're looking at hoodies, sweatshirts, jeans, jackets, boots, all of that type stuff. But what's interesting is when is the top category for these holiday seasons. For me, I'm definitely up there as one of the top categories, and what's selling as well. So we did talk about this a little bit before in those main categories, but I just want us to look at people are out there looking to spend, and they are influenced by ads. Now, it's going to depend on the categories and it's going to depend on your business model, but looking at the numbers, looking at the data, it's worth it to spend a little bit money to get your items out in front of the right buyers. And this is where I think it's important. I talked about the ad spending, but it comes down to getting in front of the buyers, but then also having a competitive price, right? So if you look here, I talk impressions at the top. We're looking at a funnel. You have to get in front of the right buyers. But if you come down here to page views, impressions is someone sees your item on eBay, however promoted, or they're searching for it, or they see it in Google search, however they see your item, then they click on it. They're intrigued enough to click on it. What's going to make them go to the next step? And you can see I have pricing on here, I have competitive shipping. So not only do you have to get your items in front of buyers, you also have to be competitive pricing. What I thought was really interesting about this, and it's going to help me make some decisions about what I'm doing, for the next couple of months. Okay, so what I thought was really interesting about this, we're looking in here about more than half of the shoppers are scoring last minute deals for their purchases. 46% are waiting to last minute shoppers. So in December, as we're looking for last minute shoppers, it's not only imperative to get your items in front of people, but it's also imperative to have very, very competitive pricing, right? So this is going to go into my strategy on what I'm doing for the rest of the month, for the last quarter. And this one I wasn't too interested in. I'm just going to show it here so you guys can see it. It talks about the demographics. If you're outsourcing, you're trying to decide what to do. For me right now, I'm not outsourcing. I'm not trying to change categories and stuff and who to buy from. But this is interesting knowing in the future, you know, millennials, our shoppers are driven by portions of spending. It's interesting. It's not really going to change what I'm doing for my AdSense. So once they give us, okay, running promotions and discounts in December for last minute shoppers, right? So this has to do with that graph of when people are shopping. It has to do with people are out there, last minute shoppers are out there looking for deals. So this is the time that you really want to get in front of buyers. This is the time when you want to have those competitive prices and move that inventory. And then tip number 3 is diversify holiday ad efforts across age groups. For me, like I said, I'm mostly fashion. I'm not changing my categories. But if you have a lot of different categories, this could be helpful in what categories do you want to do what ad spends on? What categories do you want to run big sales on? What kind of things are selling right now? Fashion, again 78%, which is very relief for me as a fashion seller. And so that's their guide. Those are the highlights that I'm noticing for it, but here's what I'm going to be doing moving forward. Based off of the AdSense that I have been doing, the promotions that I'm doing, and then based off of this, I am going to be increasing my promoted back to 15%. So for me, yes, I was making more money at the end of the day on each item I was selling because I was saving that 3%. But when people are out buying, when it's Q4, when it's holiday shopping, when you have so many more people that are willing to 55%, I think they said, people are willing to spend more money right now. I'm willing to lose that 3% if I'm increasing my volume and I'm making more sales. And honestly, if I'm getting some of this inventory out of my house. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm really going to be strategic in when I'm running these promotions, when I'm running sales, and when I'm looking at my pricing, right? Really looking at doing it at the beginning of the month when people have a lot more money. Maybe during Black Friday, I run a really big sale, or definitely towards the beginning of December and even into the end of December. I get a lot of sales after Christmas as well of people getting money and wanting to shop for themselves. And then I want to ask you guys what you think. I currently do promoted listing, just regular standard, but the data that eBay showed us said, promoted listing advanced, right? So that's where you pay per click. I've never tried it in the past, but now's the time when people are out shopping. Now's the time when we typically get a big bump in our sales. And so I'm wondering if maybe I'm going to try some promoted listing advanced. This is where you pay per click. So if you have something like Hello Kitty, and if you're watching my video, you know who I'm talking to. I have a viewer who is a huge Hello Kitty cat seller. It may be worth, using that keyword to sell. For me as a women's fashion, I've never really known what to use, so I haven't done it, but now's the time, and I might kind of mess with it. They mentioned in the holiday review as well that, they kind of offset. So instead of doing promoted listing standard, they took that ad spend that they were using, that budget for that, and kind of put it into promoted listing advanced to kind of see if you were getting better sales doing it that way. If you guys like this video, YouTube thinks you'd like this video, I'll link a playlist down here of how to make money reselling, and then make sure to hit that subscribe button to follow my journey and see how my Q4 and holiday sales turn out.